Hey, ParentSpace family. Welcome back to ParentSpace Podcast, where parent meets purpose and progress. I'm your host, Asya Nycole, wife, mama of 4, parent coach, and the founder of ParentSpace and Play Studio. This is your pause in the chaos. So take a deep breath. Whether you're washing dishes, driving to daycare, or hiding in the bathroom just for a moment of peace, you belong here.
All right, thank you guys for being here and listening and watching a ParentSpace Podcast. I have a special guest here. Her name is Tiphanie Hunter. Oh my gosh, it's been such a pleasure to just have you here. And I'm just excited that we are going to get into this topic in this episode. But before we start, I want to read a bio of Miss Tiphanie. And it reads, Tiphaine Hunter is a Christian wife, mother, author, and licensed therapist. Tiphanie's focal point for her content is to eradicate the shame and silence surrounding mental health elements, especially within the Christian community. This is like super, super strong. At this moment, we are here to pause from the chaos,
yes,
and to talk about this. So in this episode and in this, our topic today is meltdowns and moments, behaviors as communications. And, honestly, as a parent of 4, we don't talk about this enough. We don't talk about how their response is their behavior is communication.
Right.
And so my first question, I want you to expound a little bit on that, where you see fit, and then we'll get into the questions.
Okay. So one of the clinical psychologists that I have actually watched on YouTube, sometimes he takes radio calls, and people will ask him a question. He'll give his advice as he sees fit, offer resources. But one thing that he says that I wholeheartedly agree with is that behavior is a language. If you can pinpoint why a child is behaving in a certain way, be it they're happy, they're sad, tired, frustrated, once you know the why underneath the behavior, then you can address the root of the problem, because the behavior is really just the surface level. That would be the symptom. We don't know what the root cause is if we don't go beneath the surface, ask questions, and even be like a little detective. So sometimes with children, it's like, I don't know why they do this, as opposed to really getting to know your child and noticing their patterns. If you know when they're sleepy, you've got, say, 30 minutes before they start having a tantrum. Pay attention to that. So maybe the 30 minutes before bedtime, that is a time for quiet. They're maybe like getting their bath, they're getting their bedtime story, you're praying with them, you're setting up everything that they need for their bedtime routine. So this way, bedtime becomes something that they get to ease into, as opposed to it being stressful for you, stressful for them. And it's something that both of you dread, because instead of being in a peaceful state, now everybody is escalated and tensions are high, emotions are high.
As simple as that may sound,
Yes.
It's not simple. It's not.
No.
Because I honestly, as adults, sometimes we forget that we feel a certain kind of way, and we express that through our behaviors. And just imagine kids, right?
Right.
Before we go deep, so there is something called Parents Wins of the Week. And so this is where you will choose, or you will talk about something that you have experienced either with a client or within yourself that we celebrate together. So what is a win for you this week?
This week, I would say my daughter she drew a picture and asked me, could she take it to school? I said, okay, yeah. Is it show and tell today? And she said, yes, it's show and tell. I get to the school and I tell her she brought a picture for show and tell. And I said, is it show and tell? She said, no, but it can be. So this girl decided that she was going to present her artwork to her classroom. And when I picked her up, her teacher said, she did so good, presenting her picture, and she articulated what she did, and she showed all the students and explained this factor and that factor. And it reminded me of myself. And I would say the win for me is giving her the space and the security to step out and to break out and to be confident, even with something as seemingly small as sharing a picture with the class. not every child feels confident enough to like come to the front, present, and engage with people, as opposed to working in a group setting. So I was extremely proud of her, and I look forward to motivating her and encouraging her to keep standing up and keep taking opportunities.
Yes, I love that. She was like, well, it's freaking show and tell today.
I got something to show and tell.
I can only imagine. I wish I was there. Like moments like that, to me, it just lights my heart up, especially when kids are walking in confidence. And that is so beautiful.
Yes.
I love that. So the first question I want to ask pertaining to our topic, from meltdowns to moments, what inspired you to specialize in navigating for mental health?
I would say I have a younger cousin, and when he was born, there were definitely some challenges, and ultimately he ended up having speech therapy and play therapy. His functioning has skyrocketed. He is such a great kid now, young adult actually. But at the time, we had no clue what these diagnoses was going to mean for his life, what the prognosis would be, what type of quality of life would he even have. And I made up in my mind to be more curious about that. Like, instead of just, I have no clue what that means and that doesn't concern me, really wanting to dig in. And so in undergrad, I took 2 psychology classes. Originally, I thought I was going to go to medical school, but I rediscovered my passion for psychology. And there it was, like, hey, you have these questions of, God, I know that you know everything, and I'm only going to get a snapshot of your understanding. But if I could have just a little sliver of better understanding as to why sometimes people behave the way they do, or why sometimes they have this personality versus that one, that would be great. And that was psychology for me. And so that's how I got into this. Just being curious.
Yes. And I think most times as adults, we don't lean into that curiosity because we have our own desire of what we want to do. But most times, so like you were saying, just shifting, pivoting. There's something we talk about in this next here, by the way. It's called pause, pivot, and progress. And most times I feel like it's scary to pivot. And then most times this is literally what's either the call on your life or something that will benefit those around you and answer the questions that you have. Okay, so in your experience, what's the most misunderstood aspect of children's bad behavior?
I would say automatically writing it off as willful defiance and disobedience.
Yeah.
Children, they come in as blank slates. And I know genetics are not just limited to your looks. I'm pretty sure you can attest to this. Your children, you can pinpoint, oh, that's their dad's personality, or that's my personality. Oh, when they make that reminds me of them. So when it comes to impulse control, they are learning from us first. And then if they are to school, they're learning from their peers as well. But they don't come in knowing how to regulate their emotions. So sometimes that might look like them having a meltdown when it comes to a transition or throwing a tantrum. And if we are just automatically going into stop this, like, let me fix, this is the problem, let me fix it mode, then their thought process is, okay, so this is a bad thing, I'm not supposed to do it, but if I want attention and this is the attention I get, I'll take it.
Yes. That's so good. Yeah.
Not being willing to think outside the box and ask the question, well, we're behaving like this, instead of just immediately looking at it as you're willfully being defiant. You are choosing not to me. You're a bad kid. You're behaving badly. As opposed to, what are you trying to communicate to me that maybe you cannot articulate in words?
That's, man, that makes me think it makes me think about how when we have our children, we expect them to act a certain way and we haven't taught them, right? And so it's like, it comes literally, I can honestly say, I feel like it comes from generation and it's passed down unknowingly and some knowingly. It's like, well, this is how they did me, so this is how I'm gonna do my kid, you know. But the other day, a couple months ago, I did a video, and it's called Parent to Parent, right? And I was talking about how it's our responsibility to teach our children. And as they get older, I mean, like you said, they go to school, all those things, but in the home, if we don't teach them how to be grateful, we don't teach them how to communicate, we don't teach them how to regulate their emotions, it's almost as if they are in it on their own. Would you agree?
They are.
Yeah.
I would agree. Right. So it's either you are giving them the examples by modeling the behaviors you would like for them to adopt, or you're leaving it to chance.
Yeah.
And yes, your children are watching you, but oftentimes I've noticed with my daughter, if I have to redirect her, sometimes I will physically see her tense up. And then I'll explain to her the reason I'm telling you don't jump on this or don't do that. So I don't want you to hurt yourself. I'll see her shoulders immediately relax.
Nice. Yeah.
And that's for her. That might not be for every child.
Yeah.
But some children, the desire to kind of dig in their heels and double down is because they're looking at, are you going to give me an explanation as to why you're telling me this?
Yeah.
And sometimes explanations are not going to be feasible if it's a question of safety. Like, I might have to yell to you, get out of the street. And then I can explain to you when you're safe. The reason why I did that is because a car was coming.
Yeah.
But sometimes your approach will be different depending on what's the severity of danger, if any is present.
Yeah. Man, this is good. This is really good. You're just perfect. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. And so how would you say parents can begin to decode what a trauma looks like, or what it really is about?
Are there tantrums? Okay.
Yes.
I would say, instead of having the assumption that it is willful disobedience or defiance, going in with curiosity. Maybe that doesn't look like you being curious and trying to figure things out in the actual heat of the moment, but later on, when everything has calmed down, the situation has been handled, if a consequence needed to be issued, it's already done. When everybody is calm, but especially you, that's when you can start asking yourself and even invite the child into the conversation too. So I noticed when I picked you up from school, you were having a hard time getting into the car. You didn't want to buckle your seatbelt. What was going on? And maybe say, well, I was asking you, can we go to the park? And you said, we'll see. We'll see sometimes for us means no. And so the child might be asking questions like, well, why can't we go to the park? And then that turns into a whole thing. And perhaps that purpose could be, maybe they didn't get to run around outside because it was raining earlier in the morning. So the play equipment is wet at their school. Or maybe they had a rough day and they need to blow off some. So if they get to go to the park and just be a kid, just play, be in fresh air, and not have to worry about responsibilities for just 25, 30 minutes, that could address a need that maybe they can't articulate just yet.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I feel like sometimes as parents, we forget to be curious.
Yes.
And slow down long enough because, life can be life in for sure. Life can just be going so fast paced that we forget to go back and be like, wait, what was that about? And then it's brushed over.
Right.
And then that's when you go into that learned behavior of oh, when I act like this, I get attention. Or when I don't act like this, I don't get attention. So this is what I need to do.
Right.
Because most times kids, and I could even say all kids want their parents or guardian to be happy with them.
Sure.
And so just remaining curious, that's really good. So now we're in a pause, and this is the pause, pivot, and progress reflection.
Okay.
And so I want you to share a moment of your own journey where you had to pause, pivot, and progress either personally or professionally.
Sure. So I'll go with the personal route. After I finished graduate school, my initial plan was to move to Georgia, which is where I'm relocated now. Born and raised in the Bay Area, relocated for school, but outside of Illinois for my graduate school experience, I had only lived in California. So I'm thinking, I'm going to go and I'm going to set down roots in Georgia. That's where I want to be. Now, the time that I was making that decision was when my husband and I were starting to court. And so I was, hey, like, would you be open to moving to Georgia? And he said, well, yeah, but I think I would possibly have to come back because there are some, responsibilities that I have in California with my family. So I had to really think about this. Like, was I going to double down and say, well, you stay there if you want to, but I'm going to Georgia? Or was I going to be willing to pivot? Because if I really wanted to be with him, like I said that I did, and he's saying, hey, there's a possibility we might have to move back to California anyway, wouldn't it just be easier if I just came home? We get married, we start this life together. So that's what I did. And God still heard, the ideas of me saying it would be nice to settle in Georgia. I was saying that when I was maybe 16 years old. And here we are in 2025.
Nice. That's
relocated to Georgia. I relocated with him and my daughter. So I don't want to know what that experience would have been like had I moved out here as a single person, like maybe on the road to the altar and then possibly having to pack back up and go back to California versus me being able to pivot, me being able to learn to be flexible and learning to factor other people into my equation because it's not just me anymore. If I was going to be married to a whole other person, I would have to consider his plans, his thoughts, his feelings, just like he considers mine.
That's good. And then so that's really good because I can, like you said, I can only imagine as well what it would have been like if you ended up like just moving and then coming back and then let's put a parenting aspect on that.
Yeah.
Let's just say that you ended up going and doing your own thing. Would you say that this would have impacted how you would have adjusted to parenting with him when it came to your daughter?
I think so, because had I not recognized, like, hey, if the main goal is to get married and the only question is where you're going to live, let's just go with the main thing. If the main thing is to get married and you're going to get married in California and start your life there, let's just do it.
Yeah.
But if I had done my own thing, I think that it would have set up a precedence for us to be bumping heads. Well, what about my ideas?
Yeah.
What about my plans? I don't know that I want to do that. So you need to be flexible because, women do a lot of sacrificing when it comes to marriage and it comes to having kids. We're the ones that's carrying the babies and all of that. And I could easily see that turning into a negative narrative around something that was supposed to be a joint thing that we're doing together. We're building a family together. So even before our daughter came into the picture, we were building a family together. We are the base unit of a new family. And if I didn't see him as, the husband, the covering, the protector, the priest, and also like somebody that I'm supposed to be on a team with, it's going to be very trying to shift out of anytime that you say something that I don't agree with, or you have an idea that maybe I don't want to go with. I don't know about that. Like there's constantly like tug of war.
Yeah. And let's take this to when it comes to, I won't say that your daughter has tantrums, but let's just say for the sake of the topic, let's just say that your daughter is having a tantrum. Would you say that your approach and your husband's approach when it comes to that aspect are the same, or would you say it's different? And how do you guys navigate that?
I would definitely say that he is quieter in his approach with her. I am more emotional as a woman. So sometimes I have to find myself, hey, like raising your voice, not the same as yelling. It's one thing if I have to raise my voice to like get your attention, but then there's another layer of confidence that comes in when I don't even have to go there because we already know what the consequence is. Okay, baby girls, we've already told you, if you're not listening, if I'm asking you a question and you're ignoring me or you're ignoring your father, you already know what the consequence for that is. You get a timeout. Now, if you keep going with not listening and you do something that we've actually not to do, now here come privileges being taken away from you. You've got to, if you have toys or whatever, maybe for a moment, we have to like take the toys from you, like get to timeout as well. But I would definitely say that he's definitely quieter in his approach. And I love that about him because he's not having to get to certain levels to get her to pay attention.
Yeah. That's good. I can honestly say I'm more of the quieter one, but when I get frustrated, I become the louder one. I'm not the disciplinarian at all. I'm the one that wants to talk about the feelings. Let's talk about this. Like, what happened? Like, I'm the question asker. And on the other hand, and not to say that my husband is not, but he's more of like, do what I say right now.
Please. Do what I
do
feel like now.
Like,
later, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, so sometimes the first then approach with her. I pick up, buckle your seatbelt so we can go. There are other cars behind us. Yeah. Mom, can we do ... Buckle your seatbelt first, and then we'll talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that first and then works. It works. Like, and I think, well, that's a whole nother thing. We'll have to talk about that later. We'll stay on topic. So another question for you. What advice would you give to a parent who feels triggered and overwhelmed in the moment? Like, let's just say you're in the car and your daughter just keeps talking and the first and then it's just like not clicking. What advice would you give a parent when they're feeling triggered and overwhelmed in a moment? Their personal moment or a moment like that?
I would say don't ignore that and don't try to override that. Like if you're trying to keep moving or if you're trying to issue a consequence, you're trying to do compassionate disciplining, you need to be aware of the fact that you are frustrated and you are triggered because that is going to color how you are handing out the consequence to your child. So I know when I'm at home with her, timeouts are like a hard reset for the both of us. She's 5 years old, so I give her 5 minutes. And I set a timer. And once the timer has been set and it goes off, I say, okay, your timer has gone off. And because she already knows timeout is the consequence for whatever behavior you just did, I'm not going in there and lecturing her after the fact. It's over. It's done. You served your time. Let's move forward. What are we doing next? She's not doing anything that warrants a lot of talking after the fact. Thank the Lord. She's not doing anything that is so dangerous where it's like, now we have to debrief that because that was really dangerous. That was really scary what you did. It could just be, okay, you're not listening. I've asked you to do whatever 2, 3, 4 times, and I'm starting to get frustrated. So let's just both take a time out. Because while she's taking her time out, chances are I'm sitting down somewhere too, not doing anything either. Yeah. So that once the timer goes off, I get to go approach her, be calm, and say, okay, so now what are we doing?
Like, I liked when you said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And she'll tell me like, okay, like maybe she wants to do this thing, or I'll say, okay, now you know why I had to give you time out, correct? And it's like, yes, I do. And know why. And it's like, all right, well, now let's move on. What are we doing next? Like, I don't want to stay in that. I'm so angry with you because you're a kid who's doing what a child does. And you're watching my reactions to gauge how you're supposed to respond to me. So if we're both triggering each other, at what point do we diffuse the situation and come back down to a baseline where we can both be calm?
Yeah. You said, don't ignore it. And so many times, again, going back to how life be life, and we ignore it as parents. And then we just brush it off like, that's just how I am. And you don't even consider, because most times when a lot of parents don't even know what parenting styles are, right? Especially if they didn't go to school or when they didn't learn about it. So it's just like they result to, this is just the way that I am, you know? And it's ignored. And it goes back into that curiosity. Don't ignore it. So when it comes to us saying, okay, how are we going to teach our kids? The first thing is, I'm triggered. Why am I triggered? You know, going back to that. And then to segue into the next question, you said compassion, discipline. And I love this. I love it because sometimes in our brain, just the way things are, like life and just based on the culture, discipline has a bad rep.
It does.
the word discipline. So putting compassion in front of it, I really feel like it softens the perception of discipline. Right. And so my next question is, what does compassion-based discipline looks like practically in a home and with a toddler or a child between the ages of 0 to 8 years old, or just young children?
Sure. I would say give space for that child to ask you questions and for them to make mistakes. And then if they see you make mistakes, you apologize for those and you correct them. They'll learn that, mistakes or a bad moment or making a bad decision as far as their behavior is concerned is not the end of the world. It's not the end of you loving them. It's just, okay, here's a lesson that we actually get to learn from. So we're not going to go down that road again because we don't like the outcome, which is mommy's frustrated or daddy's frustrated, or you're losing out on privileges. And that's incredibly frustrating for kids who want to be active. They want to be, drawing or watching their favorite TV show or having play dates. So if they're losing privileges or even if they're just getting timeouts and that's taking time away from the things that they want to do, they'll start to make the connection. Like, okay, there are certain decisions that I can make that will give me what I want or have those things taken away. So outside of giving that space for your children, like to be curious and make mistakes as they're learning, validate their feelings. That doesn't have to be anything incredibly deep because they're small children. You can say, I understand you're sad. I understand you're frustrated. You know what? Mommy gets frustrated sometimes too. And even like giving them the language when sometimes Naraya will ask me questions. Mommy, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you frustrated? It's good because now she's learning those terms for herself too. So it's like, oh, you're crying because you miss mommy versus you're crying because your throat hurts and you're sick. Being able to distinguish between the two. So validating those feelings and giving them a language so they can identify, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's going on. Now we have a better chance of addressing it. I would also say, as far as the problematic behaviors, identify what those are and then take time, you and I, we're married, take time like with your spouse, decide on what those consequences are going to be for certain behaviors before they are needed. So if you decide on what the consequence is when, you're both, cool, calm and collected, it's easier to then just go ahead and execute when it's time. And as you have older children, say you have preteens, teenagers, even letting them know. And some people might look at this as, oh, it's so corny. Why do you have family rules written down? Because if it's written down, it's going to be a bit harder for you to forget and to try to push this them. It's like, no, remember we had this conversation and we said, if you do not hand over your phone at 8 p.m., that you lose it for a day. It's written down right here. So the pushback is not going to be, hopefully, ideally, you won't be as frustrated by it because you've already decided what the consequence for that is. This is okay, they did this thing, but I didn't anticipate that. So I don't know what the consequence is going to be. So now I'm just kind of trying to figure out, I'm flustered trying to figure out what the consequence is going to be. And maybe I might give them a consequence that's way harsher than what they did. Which is not reliable. You always have to up the ante.
Yeah. And by the time this video comes out, a podcast that's topic, family vision and values. And that reminds me of that. Like, hey, sit down, talk about it, create a vision. Because it does say if you ain't got no vision, things perish, right? So why not apply that to our family? To what are those rules? What are those goals? What are that vision for our family? What are those values? So when it does happen, you can reflect to it. And it could be a teachable moment. It's like, hey, this is not lining up with our family values. What do we need to do to reevaluate or to redirect or to pivot back to our family values? And this, like you were saying, with young children, you can use the language that they understand, but it also helps with the older kids because I got two of them and they big and they know. So now so we parent pick of the week. And so this is when you can recommend a book, an app, even a phrase that that you would consider helpful for parents, or a practice, or any resource that you would recommend to a parent.
So similar to what I was saying about like not ignoring when you're feeling triggered or overwhelmed, be very mindful of your emotions when you're dealing with your children, not just when you're disciplining, but when you're picking them up from school. One of my graduate professors, she was saying there were so many times she would see kids run to the car with all of these stories that they're just so ready to tell their parents because it's been a full school day that they haven't seen them. And the parents are like, yeah, come on, get in the car. And she said she would see those kids just deflate. Because it's like, oh, that space and time that I would have gotten or would have received to talk to you about my day and debrief and tell you about this exciting thing that happened. You just totally burst my bubble with that. So being mindful.
Yeah.
Okay. If you know you have a child who's a bit energetic, very curious, very inquisitive, you know that about them. So like when you're picking them up from school, picking them up from daycare, whatever, when you're going to spend time with them, just know like, okay, maybe I need to take a nap before I go pick them up so that I can be very or maybe we need to go somewhere after school where just the two of us can sit and we can talk and I can just really be present for them, because that models for them how to do the same for others. And I would say another practice is before you respond, pause and count to either 3 or 4. This way you have those moments to choose how you're going to respond versus being reactive to your kids, because there's a purpose behind every behavior, and sometimes it might be to frustrate you. So if you know that all I have to say is this one thing or do this one thing, and mom or dad will react in a way that maybe I might think is funny, like kind of like when little kids learn that biting gets a reaction. If you're choosing to respond differently, I guarantee you, if that behavior doesn't push the same button and they don't get the same response, they're going to stop because they're thinking, well, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. And so, and another thing, I'll say that you have a free newsletter that offers practices like this. Practically for mental health and other resources, right? As well. Right. And also your first book, I got to check this out. I should have got it already. And it also has a journal, and you have that, and it's called, go ahead. What is it called?
Be Kind to Yourself First. So this is the book.
Yes.
And I do have a journal, a guided journal that accompanies this. Both are available on Amazon. And the book is
nice. And we'll also have the information in the show notes as well.
And the book is available in print as well as Kindle.
Nice. Yes. I love some journaling. I definitely got to get this. So now I would like to share a scripture. And so this is a moment to pinpoint it back to the Word of God. And this is something that I feel like as parents that we can get our nourishment, and we also can help with guiding. One, these is God's kids, first of all. And so this right. It's like, God, you gave me these kids, so you told me what to do. And so this is one of my favorite segments of the podcast and the video. And so it reads from Proverbs 15:1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. How would you say this can be applied to a parent's life when it comes to parenting?
I would say, like, for me, it's self-explanatory, but for someone who may not read the Bible, and this might have been your first time hearing the scripture, I would encourage you to consider, like, how do you feel when someone comes to you with a quiet tone or a harsh tone? Are you more likely to respond favorably when someone is yelling at you or overly criticizing you? Constructive criticism is one thing, but when someone is being demeaning and condescending, is that really going to put you in a mindset to respond to them kindly? Or are you thinking, okay, I can't wait until you're done so I can clap back? Same with parenting.
Yes.
While children might not have the vocabulary that we do, they can show us in their behavior just how upsetting or just how comforting they experience us. So when you are dealing with your children, it is best to model like being patient, being kind, and being curious, because what you instill in them, those are the fruits that are going to come up. So if you're quick to be reactive, if you're quick to yell at them, if they make a simple mistake, they will treat themselves that way. That's the internal voice they will have. They're going to remember how you treated them, and that'll be one of the voices that they hear in their mind is their parents' voice, whether it is kind or whether it is not.
Yeah, that's good. And as we wrap up, coming to the end of the podcast, what is one reminder that you want to help parents remember about giving themselves grace? And we will have this as our progress over perfection tip.
Sure. All right. So for today's progress over perfection tip, I would encourage parents to take it one day at a time. You're going to be parenting your children for quite some time. So if whatever lessons you are trying to instill in them aren't taking root in the first day, that is okay. Just like it took you a while to learn certain things, it will take a while for them too. And some kids are faster at learning than others, but don't be discouraged by that. Another thing I would suggest is please do not be afraid to mess up, and definitely do not hesitate to apologize when you do make an error, because that is what your children are watching. So your children will realize, hey, when I make a mistake, I can apologize for it. I can pivot and I can learn from it and keep going, instead of looking at mistakes and failures as, well, I'll never be able to bounce back from this. So it teaches them resilience. It teaches them how to be gracious with themselves, and it teaches them accountability. I did that. I made that mistake. I'm sorry. Can we move forward?
Yeah.
And lastly, please do not compare your parent-child dynamic to anyone else's. And for those of you who have multiple children, don't compare your bond with one child to the others, because every child is different. So the way that you parent them and relate to them is going to be different too. And just be encouraged that the same God that entrusted these kids to you, he will give you guidance on how to raise them if you ask him.
Yes, that's so good. This was just so heartwarming. I'm full, like really full. This is so amazing. I'm so grateful you agreed to be here and to stay connected with you. You're on Instagram and you're on Twitter, right? And it's at TikTok. I'm sorry about that. Twitter. That's Twitter. This like no longer existed, I don't think, or it's called X now or something like that.
X now, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm not even on Twitter, or X, we should say. But so your handle is at Tip. So TIPHHUNTER.
Yes,
and that's on Instagram and TikTok.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I want to say thank you again for taking the time to come and talk to us, talk to me. I'm so grateful. And we definitely have to do this again. And did you have any other pointers that you want to, or anything that you wanted to share ending out?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for considering me. I do not take opportunities like these lightly. We have so many people who are speaking, I won't even say live. People are just speaking over people. So when I get these opportunities, I am very honored, very humbled, and it will never stop being, what am I trying to say? I will never not get nervous about this because I take this so seriously. It's definitely a privilege to be able to share my expertise, my experiences, and my testimony. So thank you so much for considering me. I really appreciate this.
Of course. And I know somebody's going to be blessed, because I was definitely blessed. And again, I want to say thank you. And until next time, this was our pause in our chaos. And so thank you again for coming over on this side, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
If today's episode stirred something in you, I want to invite you to our next Parent to Parent Circle. It's a safe place to dig deep into your family's foundation with other parents who are doing the same thing. RSVP in the show notes or follow us at ParentSpace Play Studio to stay connected. And we're on Instagram and Facebook. Remember, you don't have to parent perfectly. You have to parent on purpose, and that's what we are here for. Until next time, keep loving, keep leading, and keep growing.